Welcome back to the Bruins Benders post-game live. It is a wonderful Saturday afternoon, and you are back with, you guessed it, not Maddie, but Smitty and Connor here on the Saturday afternoon while Maddie gets the R&R in. And finally, the Boston Bruins did it. They snapped the 6-game losing streak. Excuse me. Ooh, that's a bad one. And they get one in a wild win. A lot of puck luck going both ways at the end of that game to break your heart at the end of regulation and to send you off into the evening with a happy heart. It was an up and down one, Smitty.
It was up and down. And look, I don't know how the Bruins were even in this game really for most of it. You know, a power play goal, their first one since December 23rd against Washington. So, you know, that was good to see. But Panthers outshoot the Bruins tonight. Shot attempts. The Panthers had 100 shot attempts, over 100 over the course of the game. The most all season, maybe the most ever. I don't know. But it seemed like it was a rope-a-dope thing. Like the Panthers just kept coming and coming. Swayman was really good in this one. I mean, you talk about stealing a game. He probably stole that one for you today. I mean, Bob made some big saves there late to keep it a 1-goal game and give the Panthers the opportunity to tie it late. But Swayman was really good in this game. He was locked in from the very beginning. The one goal on the power play was a rebound goal that I think he probably should have had, and he'd tell you he probably should have had that. But other than that, he was nails. You know, too bad a cross crease and a weird bounce over his head on the a net front scramble. You can't fault him really on those. So he was nails in this one, and they needed him to be because the Panthers, totally dominated the play from beginning to end, and the Bruins were opportunistic. It used to be that this is what happened to the Bruins against other teams. The Bruins would dominate the shots on goal, and then the other team would, catch a odd man rush or something and score. And, it was kind of counterintuitive to how the play was going. And, but the Bruins, were on the good end, the receiving end of this one this time, and found a way to get it done. Especially after the deflating goal at the very end. I'm surprised. They were pretty resilient there in overtime, had some chances. Panthers had some chances, but they find a way right at the very end to get it done.
They did. One of the things that you mentioned there is, the Panthers dominating play. But leading into this one, the Bruins definitely dominated the headlines because it's been chaos in Boston for the last 24 to 36 hours with WEEI's Rich Keefe coming out and kind of throwing gasoline all over this 0-6 team and throwing it out there that David Pastrnak potentially, allegedly, went and said that he didn't want to play with Brad Marchand anymore. And Boston went up in flames. And shortly thereafter, the team's PR staff went to their defense, posting pictures of the two at practice. And then, of course, lined up every player in the team's leadership group to go and talk about how much they love each other, they're best friends, they want to play with each other. And, of course, the two themselves coming out and throwing cold water on it. What do you think about this chaos going on?
I mean, it is chaos. And look, when the team doesn't go well, when things aren't going well, stuff like this is bound to blow up. Like, I'm sure they've had instances over the course of their career where they've disagreed on things. That's the nature of sports, especially if you're on the same line with somebody. Why'd you do that? I was wide open. Or why'd you do this? Why'd you turn? So Bergeron, they used to say back in the day that the two of them used to snipe at each other all the time on the bench. And Patrice Bergeron was like the father, and we would be like, all right, enough. Like, all right, we're past that now. Like, move on to the next play. So look, there probably was something there. I don't think it's as big as Keefe is blowing it up to be, saying he doesn't want to play with them anymore or anything like that. But, I'm sure there've been instances in the past where they haven't gotten along. And when you lose and when you're losing, those things are magnified. Every little thing is going to get blown up now because you're losing. When you're winning, that cures everything. No one gives a shit if you disagreed, if you're winning. But when you're losing, everything gets magnified. Every little thing, every slight, every weird look, every deep breath, every rolled eyes, all that shit gets magnified. So, I'm sure there was probably something between the two of them that, didn't go particularly well in the recent past because they've been losing games. But it's not to the point where, I think anyone's like asking for a trade or, Pastrnak doesn't want to play with Marchand. Like those guys are two of the best players on the team. So we need them to be successful. And for the team to be successful, those guys need to be good. So, like I said, I think there's probably been some instances in the past, but nothing to the level of what Rich Keefe is talking about.
So do you think this is coming from somewhere in the organization?
Yeah, I think it's probably somewhere in the organization. It's probably someone maybe who hasn't been around the players as much. And when, there's a disagreement between players, they see it and they go, oh, geez, like these guys don't like each other anymore. But that stuff happens all the time, especially in professional sports. Guys, teammates are going to disagree. And even if they weren't, disagreeing or best friends, like you don't have to love the guy you're playing with to respect his game on the ice. So, I think they are friends. I mean, they certainly have appeared that way in the past. I think they'll remain friends. I think they're still friends. But what we need really, when you get down to the brass tacks of it all, is we need them both to play better. Marchand had been 8 games, 9 games now without a goal. Pastrnak has been up and down, all season.
Today was an up for sure.
Yeah, today was an up, especially late. I thought in the third period he was really good. Before that, didn't really show up too much, but then is there to tap in the great feed from Morgan Geekie. So, I feel like you're going to need these guys going forward, and it's a good thing that they were able to get the win tonight, and for Pastrnak to get the game winner. I think a little bit of poetic justice there, I guess.
So the reason that I wanted to bring this up before we kind of dove too far into the game stuff is obviously David Pastrnak played better today than he has been. So my feeling is on this. Did David Pastrnak hear all of this in the media and kind of look through some of the comments on some of this stuff? And, did that spur on this jump in his personal play? Like he played significantly better than he has been.
I mean, maybe. And if that's the case, if they can take that report and turn it into a galvanizing moment for the team and the roster,
poster board material.
Yeah, I mean, they should be sending Rich Keefe fucking Christmas cards. Sorry, John. Like they should be giving this guy a raise. I mean, Marchand's telling him to go back to the closet where he came out of. But I mean, if this actually can help them turn the season around, if this is a galvanizing moment for the team and the roster and Marchand and Pastrnak to all of a sudden start playing better and go on a little run here, they should be thanking Rich Keefe, not sending him back to the closet where he came from.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But getting back to the game, the first period started off with a dull thud in the way that the Bruins were absolutely dominated through the first 5 minutes of the period. And I believe they had just roughly 20 seconds of offensive zone time in the first 5 minutes of the game. They get the power play and get ahead with that one lucky power play goal. In my opinion, they finally get a lead against the Panthers. And
they get a lead against anyone. I mean, during the losing streak, they've only been in the lead for about 11 minutes in all 7 games, and counting today before they, once they took the lead. So it's been a struggle for them to even, get up on anybody at this point.
And then throughout the first period and even most of the second period, you give away the lead real quick, and then you're gaining it back. You give it away, you're gaining it back, and it's the constant battle. And just as somebody who's watching the Bruins recently and been on this 0-6 run, you just had that feeling in the back of your mind that, here we go. Like, this is another one of these Bruins games where we're just going to give it up, and here comes 0-7. But
yeah, I feel like when the Panthers tied it 2-2 early in the third, I think everybody in Bruins Nation was like, they're losing this game. Like, there's no chance they're coming back in this game. Like, that was a deflating goal early in the period. And you're like, oh, Jesus. Like, the Panthers have dominated play. They're just going to turn it on in the third and beat the Bruins like 5-2, like the Bruins have done a million times this year. But the Bruins responded and get a quick goal right back. Oliver Wahlstrom's first as a Bruin. They make a good play down low. Wahlstrom does to maintain possession of the puck. They get the puck to the net. McAvoy charges in, makes a move around somebody, gets poked away, and Wahlstrom's there to bang the rebound in. Like, that's what the Bruins need to do. It's not going to be pretty with this team scoring goals. It's got to be greasy ones. It's got to be getting the puck to the net and crashing the net and trying to just bang pucks in. Like, they don't have the skill up and down the lineup that many other teams do. They have to rely on their defense. They have to rely on Swayman, and then they have to rely on working hard. And a lot of games this year, a lot of times this year, they haven't been the hardest working team. This team needs to be the hardest working team in the game if they're going to win, because they aren't as talented. So, that was a big goal for the Bruins and for Wahlstrom. And then, Bobrovsky in the third makes a couple of giant saves on Pastrnak. Mm-hmm. Bruins are trying to extend the lead, and then, they get that fortunate bounce there for Reinhart over Swayman, and somehow Jordan Osterley can't bat that puck out of the air with his glove, and it goes in, and then you're really deflated, and you're like, oh, the Panthers are certainly winning now. And then it was overtime was kind of back and forth. Bruins had possession for a bit, then the Panthers, and then the Bruins get it back, and Pastrnak trying to pass with 2 seconds on the clock, and Reinhart, of all people, deflects it into his own net after he can't make it clear. So maybe a little bit of good karma there for the Bruins at the end of this one.
Maybe a little bit. Now, while you were talking there, I started to pull up some of the box score things so we could go through and talk about this. Mm-hmm. Did I miss something? Did Mark McLaughlin get hurt?
No, I don't believe he did.
He had 4 minutes and 56 seconds of time on ice. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I think he played a little bit early in the game. He
had 9 shifts.
Yeah, he played a little bit early. I mean, maybe he did get dinged up. I didn't hear anything about that on the broadcast. Who would he have been playing with? Beecher, right?
And well, the other glaring ones here that are kind of low is Oliver Wahlstrom.
Kepke had 11 shifts. And so Beecher played a little bit of PK time, so he got a little bit more. But they didn't really play their fourth line at all tonight. They played him a little bit early, and then not much after that. I get the shortening the bench in a game that you need to win. You're rolling with your so-called studs. But I don't know. I feel like that's going to wear you down in the grand scheme of things, especially against a team like Florida. So, and they iced the puck. I mean, maybe that was their strategy. Any kind of pressure late, just ice it and live to fight another day. They didn't get burned, even though, I guess they did, because they had 3 icings in the last, minute and a half, and Barkov won all the faceoffs against Zacha.
They were atrocious in the faceoff dot.
And they scored. But maybe the icing thing was like, if you feel any pressure, just get it out. Like, we can't afford to turn pucks over in our own zone. The strategy, I guess, in the end worked for them. But you're playing with fire if you're trying to do that too often against a team like Florida. Like you said, the Florida owns the dot. They're going to make plays off faceoffs eventually.
Mm-hmm. Hockey is a game of possession. If you can't win a faceoff, you're fucked. Sorry, Johnny.
That was part of the issue the Bruins have had the last few years without Bergeron and Krejci. They were terrible on the dot and giving up possession of the. So that was one of the big reasons they wanted Lindholm. And yes.
Look how that's turned out.
Yeah, he's good in faceoffs. That's fantastic, but he's not offering you much else other than
being still under 50% tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't good. This might have been one of his worst games as a Bruin. Like, he was not good at all tonight. But you know
what? He wasn't worse than Brad Marchand.
That was the reason that you go out and get him, is because he can win draws and he's defensively responsible and all that. But they overpaid him. I mean, people talk about, I thought he was Kevin Paul Dupont from the Globe mentioned today on Twitter. He thought Lindholm would be a really nice upgrade at first second line center. And I didn't see it. Like, I like the player overall. I do. But 7.75 is crazy to me that you would pay that guy coming off a 44-point season that much money. It just doesn't make any sense. And that goes back to general manager and the roster is thin. The roster doesn't have enough scoring.
He would be a phenomenal second line center.
Even a third line center. Like, if you can go out and get a legit number one center, which you can't because they're almost impossible.
I will screech if we have another Charlie Coyle being overpaid in our third line. I will scream, cry, and kick the back seat as Don Sweeney drives all the way back to the TD Garden. I
know what you're saying, but hear me out. If you can get a number one center, which you can't, but if you could, hypothetically.
Elias Pettersson.
Elias Pettersson, yeah. God bless you. And Matt Pastrnak can turn into, and I think his upside is a second line center.
Agreed.
As your third line guy, that's fine. Like, if you have Pettersson, Patra, Lindholm, Kastelik for the next 3 years, for Christ's sake, Matty would be going nuts right now. But that's decent up the middle. Like, but you need the number one guy to push everybody down and really put them in the positions where they should be. And they just don't have that now. They talked about it on the ABC before the broadcast. They were killing the Bruins and the management of the Bruins for the roster and how they're thin up the middle, and they don't have any guys who can distribute the puck to the scorers. And look, Matty's been banging that drum for years now, since Krejci and Bergeron left, since Krejci specifically. Like, they don't have a playmaking center. And you need a guy like that to distribute the puck to your goal scorers, like David Pastrnak. PK Subban mentioned on the pregame. Pastrnak has, at the time, it was 17 goals. He's a 60 goal scorer if he has a guy who can pass him the puck. But he doesn't have that right now. So he has 19 goals in 45 games or whatever it is. And that's not really what you want. So the Bruins got to solve that somehow. And they haven't. And I don't know if they will, because, unless they're doing some kind of major shakeup, the Elias Petterssons and stuff aren't coming to the Bruins unless you end up
at some big firework trades.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, it's going to take a big shakeup in order to get one of those elite number one guys.
Yeah, and speaking of ESPN, kind of butchering the Bruins throughout the broadcast. The play-by-play announcer during the middle of the game made a point when Barkov and Reinhart came out together during the 4-on-4 that no matter what situation you have, 4-on-4, 4-on-3, 5-on-5, 5-on-4, no matter what, those two guys are going to roll out there together and they're going to be able to play both sides of the puck extremely well. Mm-hmm. You know that they're going to cover defensively and they're going to have a really good chance to score. The Bruins used to have that when they had Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron.
Yes, they
played in every aspect of the game together. Mm-hmm. The Bruins don't have that anymore in any facet. They don't have anybody who can play with Marchand and center him well, and they don't have anybody who can really center Pastrnak in those situations and play both ways well. So to me, when the announcer said that, I was like, son of a bitch, like, ouch, like that hurts inside, that this is 100% the reason why this team is struggling so hard in all of these specialty team situations. And, as you say, if they can acquire the top line center and slot everybody in the proper way, the top line center probably can play with one of those two players extremely well in two-way situations.
Yeah. That's ideally what you would want, but those guys, as we say about goal scorers, don't grow on trees. So how to acquire that, I mean, I don't know. So, my thinking is if the number one center isn't out there, you have to go out and get goal scoring wingers. Like a Rantanen, like a Marner. Marner might be the guy, actually, because even though he's a winger, he is a playmaking winger.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, that might be the guy that they should go out and try to get in free agency this coming year if he doesn't re-sign in Toronto, and it looks unlikely that he will, with them being kind of up against the cap there. But that might be the guy to bring in and put with a Marchand or put with a Pastrnak in order to kind of unlock them goal scoring wise.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens on that end, because as Don Sweeney already said, this is an incomplete roster. So we can already expect that something's going to happen. The real question is, do the Bruins play well enough the next couple of weeks to deserve some kind of upgrade trades where they trade players away with some picks to upgrade? Or are we dumping players for draft picks because we're ass?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've said it all along. I want them to move the guys that they don't think are going to be part of their future for assets, because I don't want them walking away for nothing. That's just bad asset management. It's bad general managing. And they've done it before. They did it with DeBrusk when they could have traded him previously. So I don't want to see that happen. But look, in the Eastern Conference, even the worst team in the league, I think, is like still 7 or 8 points out of the last wild card spot. So the Bruins aren't going to give up, especially with the mantra from the Jacobs family that we want to make the playoffs. The Bruins are going to be looking to add. I know they will. Sweeney wants to save his job. The Jacobs want playoff gate, playoff money, playoff revenue. So they're going to be looking to add, and it's probably not what I would do. I don't think it's the smart thing for the long-term health of the organization and the team and the roster. But that's what they'll do, because that's how things work around here. That's how things work. Sweeney wants to keep his job, and the Jacobs family wants that playoff money. So they'll add, even though it's not the right thing to do.
And the good news is the Bruins were in real jeopardy if they lost today. They didn't. They jumped back over the Tampa Bay Lightning up to third in the Atlantic Division. The other good news is the Ottawa Senators are beating the Pittsburgh Penguins right now, so don't have to worry about the Penguins hot on your heels for a wild card position either. But overall, a win is a win.
Yep.
It was either 0-7 on a heartbreak goal with 1.8 seconds left in regulation, where I audibly yelled, "Oh my God," to the point where Amanda came in here and was like, "What's the matter?" I was like, "Look, this is happening."
I said, "Are you fucking shitting me?" That's what I said out loud. And my wife was like, "What happened?" She's like, "They tied it." And I'm like, "Yep."
And then,
terrible.
And then immediately I was like, in the pit of my stomach, I was like, man, they give up that one at 1.8 seconds. That's like soul crushing. You were about to lose this in like the first 10 seconds of overtime.
Yeah. It really did feel like a couple of those goals the Panthers scored would have crushed their souls. It felt like that. The goal early in the third to tie it up, you felt like, oh no, the Panthers are just gonna run away with this one in the third. And then the goal with 1.8 to tie it up certainly felt like, oh no, like this is terrible. Like the Bruins are gonna lose this game in overtime now, after being 2 seconds away from getting 2 points. So showed some resiliency, showed some fight, and were able to come out with a win, which they desperately needed. It wasn't the most beautiful thing ever, but like you said, a win is a win is a win. So take it and run. And now you got Tampa again on Tuesday, who was a tight game against them in the last one, and you need to find a way to win that one, and then maybe you're okay. Maybe you're okay.
Yeah, I would classify this one as a gutsy win. for
Yep.
sure.
Yes.
You can use that one, Joe. Okay. Put the check in the mail. You can use that one on me.
Yeah.
Anyways, over to the fun part of the show in the
Yes.
fan comments. Matthew Curtis hops in with this team just really seems to not care. That was obviously in the probably mid first period by the timestamp on this comment here at 2:20 in the afternoon, your time. I have to actually convert some time zones here when I read these. Makes them difficult. T-Boz, not first time, definitely long time. Nice start. Good power play goal. Good PK. Thanks to our $850,000 goaltender, it is a 1-1 game.
Yeah, at the time I was pissed about that goal. Like I was like, you need a motherfucking save. Sorry, John. Like you need a save there. Like that. Even though he'd played well up to that point, like you need a save on that play. And they didn't get it, but you know, in the end, Swayman played really well overall today, and they were able to get to 2 points. So I guess that's all that matters.
That is all that matters. But when you want to have a good game, as Pejman says, 8 shots on net halfway through the game just isn't going to get it done. They got trounced in the shots on goal department. I think it was 43-18 to end the game. That's definitely not a recipe for success. But halfway through the game, I will say that the Bruins were taking a throw the puck at the net mentality. They just had a really hard time getting the puck on the net, whether it was just blatantly missing the net or it being blocked. 8 shots halfway through the game, 18 for the whole game. That's not a recipe for success.
It's not. But look, the Bruins blocked a ton of shots tonight, like sold out to try to keep pucks out of their own net. They blocked 29 shots tonight to the Panthers 9. So selling out to
and
block
still
shots.
Got outshot 43-18.
I know. That's what I'm saying. The Panthers had over 100 shot attempts, over 100. And you probably had like 35. And somehow you won the game. This is the story of the Bruins this season. Somehow they're winning games. Like the roster's not playing. The roster's not particularly good. They're not playing particularly good. They're towards the bottom 10 in the league in all categories. Offensive categories, defensive categories, everything. And somehow, some way, this team is still finding a way to win games. It should be studied by the people in MIT or something that figure out the probability of a team that's not very good at all somehow still finding ways to win. I don't know how they're doing it, really. Smoke and mirrors, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, survival, I think, is the one. Pejman agrees with the comments on the Coyle giveaway earlier. He brought the puck back into the zone himself for no reason at all. They can't ever seem to get puck possession against this team. Just trying to survive every shift. And when the Bruins play the Panthers, surviving every shift just seems to be the small victory that gets them by, because they've always had a hell of a time for the past couple years against the Panthers.
They have. And one bright spot tonight, I would say, even though the Bruins were vastly outshot and outplayed, the defense tonight, only 6 giveaways, which was shocking to me. You know, they had a couple more from forwards. Pastrnak had 2, Zacha had 2, Beecher had 2, because Beecher's stick is where offense goes to die. And Brazeau had 1. But, you know, on defensively, Carlo with 1, Lowry with 2, McAvoy with 1, Peak with 1, and Zadorov with 1. So, you know, pretty decent defensively, I would say. Kind of a bend, don't break, like don't let them really to the inside as much, and keep the shots to the outside, and you know, ice it if you're in trouble. I guess it seemed to work, but I don't think that's a recipe for success if you're playing these guys in a 7-game series.
Not at all. I mean, you're definitely going to probably lose that series 4-1. I would imagine, and that's the one game that you get. Mm-hmm. Another bright spot of this game was Oliver Wahlstrom, obviously potting the goal here. Matthew Curtis chimes in with, now, of course, Don Sweeney will ink Oliver Wahlstrom to the extension. So that's probably 3 years, 2.1 million.
Yeah, probably 3 years at 3. You know, he's a local guy. Give him a bump. You know,
Yeah, he's a local guy. It's his first goal since he was 9 years old with the
yeah,
Bruins.
give him a, you know, we got a highlight to showcase. Give him a bump. Yeah. He's got a mini one-on-one highlight from when he was 9 that, you know, we can show over and over again. That alone should be worth the contract, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. Pejman brings up a comment here about Freddie, and he should never ask anybody to fight. Just start punching and ask questions later. I believe this is kind of in reference to the AJ Greer going after Mason Lowry in the second period and kind of ragdolling him. Lowry obviously wanted nothing to do with him, out of his weight class there. And Freddie comes over and doesn't even drop the gloves right away, just starts going after him, pushing him. By the time he gets excited enough to do anything about it, the refs have 10 feet in between them.
Yeah. So couple things about that. It looked like it was McAvoy and Greer initially, and McAvoy's not really a fighter either, you know, to the caliber of AJ Greer anyways. And then
He's definitely not when he has a cast on his wrist on his off days.
That's 100% true, which is another reason why I think people were, you know, commenting about McAvoy not jumping back in for Lowry after Lowry kind of initiated with Greer. McAvoy has a cast on his wrist for some reason. We don't know why, but he does. Whether it's a sprain or whatever, but he probably shouldn't be fighting. And Lowry definitely shouldn't be fighting a guy like Greer. That's not really in his nature. But to see Lowry step in and actually engage at all in the first place, I love it. We need to see more of that from him. I thought today he was pretty good overall. Like he wasn't, he defended harder than I think we've seen from him, which is a step in the right direction. Look, I don't know if he's ever going to be great defensively, but if he can get to average with his offensive ability, then that's a win, and you'll take that. But, you know, it was nice to see that from him, and then it was nice to see Freddie jump in there. And look, Freddie was smart there for once, and because Greer, well, you know, screwed around with Lowry and then took the gloves off and was throwing punches at Freddie before he got the gloves off, Greer got the extra 2. So the Bruins ended up with a power play out of that, and showed some goddamn discipline for once all season long, which is not something you've seen from them.
The 2 most penalized teams, I believe,
yeah,
in the NHL.
I mean, and, you know, I think there were, 8 power plays total in the game, and then some other matchings and skirmishes and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, they held up their end of the bargain overall. It wasn't, you know, I didn't think playoff intensity hitting wise, like it wasn't there to match some of the other games, because I feel like, especially the Bruins, like they can't afford to take penalties with their penalty kill and so forth. And their power play is just, you know, they got one tonight, but it has been a mess. So I think the Bruins would rather play games at this point in time, 5-on-5. So, you know, that's kind of how they need to play, a little more disciplined and, you know, kind of trying to limit the amount of penalties they take.
Yeah, and Dan Maynard chiming in from the land down under. The game started at 4 a.m. here, and he woke up with 3 minutes left on the clock in OT. He woke up at the perfect time. You weren't depressed about the 1.8 seconds left and, you know, the regular game there. So perfect timing. Now he gets to go about the rest of his day with a smile on and punching some kangaroos in the face. You never know.
Yeah, and avoiding those killer spiders. Yeah. Swayman tonight, by the way, with a .930 save percentage, 40 saves on 43 shots. So
it is easy to make your stats look good when you face an astronomical amount of rubber.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that used to be what his kind of calling card when he was at the University of Maine. They gave up a ton of shots. They were not a very good defensive team. So there's some goalies that are like that. They would rather see, you know, a lot of shots, you know,
the Bruins used to play that way.
Yeah. Not a lot of high danger chances, but a lot of shots, you know, from the outside and where you can see the puck and feel the puck and get into a game rhythm.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe that's a start of Swayman starting to find his game here. He's had a nice little stretch, where the Bruins, you know, haven't won games, but he's been decent over that stretch. So, you know, if he's starting to find it, that can only be good news for the Bruins.
Yeah, and that might be something to kind of, you know, keep an eye on as the next few games rolls through here. But Jonesy chimes in. Does this count as Swayman stealing a game?
I think it does. I think it does. Even though, like I said, you really want to save on that first one. The second one was a cross crease, and the third one popped over his head. So I don't think you can fault him on either of those. And he was really good in between. He made, some big saves and at timely moments when they needed him to. And, they ended up getting a win. So, I mean, he had a Tkachuk save on a breakaway by Tkachuk. So, yeah, I think you can. I think you can say he finally stole you one. Now we need that like probably 6 or 8 more times this year if the Bruins want to stay in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's going to have to do a lot of that. And speaking of Swayman, one of the things that I've been tickled by and kind of cringed out a little bit, I guess you could say, is all this mom's content coming out from his Bruins trip. One of the weirdest things was Marchand and McAvoy's mom in the locker room reading off the lineup.
Yeah.
When they got to Jeremy Swayman, they call him the Bulldog and start barking, and all the players were barking.
Yeah.
I was like, what are we doing? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that is his nickname. But yeah, it was a little bit cringy, but look, they're moms. I mean, they're not supposed to be the cool ones. That's not.
Marchand's mom is like lights out for the entertainment. Have you seen the video of her pretending to be Brad?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good.
Pretty funny.
Yeah, the Bruins social media, I think it's
Joe Russo and
Elaine Cavallari.
Elaine, that's what it was.
Yeah, she's excellent with the TikToks and some of the Instagram stuff and their social content. She does a great job. And Joe Russo and who's the other guy? I don't know who the other guy is. The guy who does the
that guy. Yeah, you're right. I believe you.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yep, I believe you. Rumble over here chimes in. Holy sweet Jesus. Somehow we won in Pejman. That is the first win of 2025. Holy sweet Jesus. Is that actually like that's tough to swallow that this was the first win of 2025?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is tough to swallow. If the Bruins had held on, that would have been the Panthers' first loss in regulation in a 1-goal game all year, but they didn't hold on.
Those pesky Panthers,
1.8 seconds away or whatever from being the first team to do that against the Panthers. But yeah, I mean, look, Florida's really good, and they're going to be really good, and they're going to be there when it matters. And I think they played a lot of hockey the last couple of years, and I feel like for the most part this season they're kind of coasting through. I think tonight they got up for the game because it's the Bruins and it's a rivalry. But they've been coasting through and kind of conserving their energy for the most part. And I feel like they will be one of those teams that will be able to turn it on come playoff time.
Yeah, and Pejman brings up a good point and kind of makes me think of a question for you here. If you had the Bruins snapping their longest losing streak in 10 years against a team that owns them, calls them daddy, you're lying. Wow, did they need it? Mm-hmm. The next game event against Tampa is a must-win. Do you think that the Bruins winning specifically against the team that has broken their back is the galvanizing win that helps them get it back on track, or is the way that they ended the regular chunk of the game, the regular time here, kind of spoil that?
No, I don't think that spoils it because they still ended up having enough resiliency to get the win. But I will say, look, they didn't play great in this game. They gave up 100 shot attempts. But they did win. And so if they can win against Tampa, that's a huge win also. But is it a must win? Probably not a must win.
Probably yes.
But I think you're getting to the point in the season where maybe like all games now are must wins. So it will be interesting to see if they can win it. Will they start to gain some momentum from that? Because we've had victories before where they've shut out a pretty good team and you're like, okay, now's their chance to turn the corner. And then in the next game, they're awful.
Yeah.
They weren't great in this game. So if they play not great in the next game too and lose, then, we're back where we were. But if they play, average or good and are able to win, then you say, okay, maybe things are trending in the right direction. Strung a couple of wins together against playoff teams, all that's good. If Swayman plays really well again, I feel like he probably will get the net again. I think. Maybe not.
Just ride him at this point.
Yeah, but I think he probably will. And they'll go. Who do they play Thursday? Is it like a?
It's not like it's going to get any easier from here. I have the schedule right in front of me on Thursday.
Ottawa. So they'll save. And they don't play until Saturday. So I think they go Swayman. I think maybe they go Swayman Tuesday, and then Korpisalo against his old team on Saturday.
Of course.
And then you give Swayman a decent sized rest there. So I think that's probably what they'll do. So my point was, if Swayman plays well again on Tuesday, then he's playing well now. You get a win, a couple against playoff teams. That's something to build on for sure.
Yeah, because you go 2 games, Saturday and Monday. You play the Senators, and then you play the Sharks. So the schedule gets a little bit easier for those 2 games, a little bit of a bump there. Aussie Bruin 37 stole a win there. Massive talent gap in our top 6 versus the Panthers on show in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Pejman, the end of the third was unbelievably infuriating. Pastrnak misses on the back-to-back breakaways. Lowry hits a post. Pastrnak, another post. Can't win a face-off to save our lives. Felt the tying goal coming, as did we all. And then everybody starts cussing at their television.
Yeah, I thought with 1.8, I'm like, oh, maybe they're actually going to be able to hold on. And then you see it pop up and in, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, here we go again. But yeah, it was infuriating to watch. And I tweeted out during the game that this team is not fun. It's not fun to watch this team. It's a grind. It's a test of your fanhood. It's a chore. It is. It's all of those things. It's not fun watching this team. It's not really an entertaining product. They have to grind out everything. They don't score. There's not really anything particularly beautiful about the way they play. It's just a grind for everyone involved, the team, the fans, everybody. So that's not really a fun way to spend your afternoon, but here we are, hooked in to this team that's mediocre at best, but still somehow hanging on to a playoff spot.
And as Matty Berry, Mr. Matty Worldwide out there says, win is a win is a win. And he probably said motherfucker after that, but
yeah, no, that's my job. He's not really an MFer. He doesn't say that very often.
What a
he'll drop the fuck around and the shit around, but he's not really an MFer. It's really
that's your shtick.
Yeah, it's really more my domain. Yeah.
Now, here's a funny comment about the Bruins and our talk about, is this going to get them going? Dan from Down Under. I'm not getting it in my head that this is what brings us back. The Bruins are that abusive partner that you seem to stick with because they say sorry once in a while and everything seems okay.
Oh, Dan, that's beautiful. That is so true. That is so true.
That definitely outlines
that is this season's Boston Bruins team 100%. They treat you bad for long periods of the season, and then every once in a while they win a game like this and they, pull you back in. Yeah. So true.
Hi. And then Dan also does say that those kangaroos today are going to get fucked up. Sorry.
Yeah, Dan. That's right. Punch a bitch out there. A kangaroo. What's a female kangaroo called? Is it just also a kangaroo, or does it have like a different name?
I don't know. Dan will let us know here in a second. Yeah. Also, recent guest of the Bruins Benders podcast when I wasn't here. It's Matty Worldwide. Yeah. Christy DeLisi, what did I tell you guys on this last episode? They had to outwork the Panthers, and they outshot blocked the Cats 29-8. Now, my personal feelings about winning in the shot blocking department is it's like claiming that you're doing work when your parents forced you to do some chores.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
well, you kind of got forced into doing it.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's good that they were able to block the shots, but that also speaks to, look, Florida had the puck way more than you did. So if they have 100 shot attempts, you better be willing to block shots, or you're going to lose, and you're going to lose badly. So they had to outwork the Panthers in this one, and they had to outshot block them, and somehow, some way, they find a way in the end. But that's not a recipe that anyone should say, oh yeah, I mean, that's what we'll do against Florida from now on. We'll let them take 100 shots. Swayman will play really well, and we'll kick a few in and win 4-3. Like you said earlier, if this was the playoffs, like the Bruins lose, if the series went this way, the way that this game did, they would get swept or lose in 5. Like, you were lucky to win this one. Swayman was really good, and you were opportunistic in some chances, but that's not a recipe that anybody wants to see continue.
Not one bit. And I'm kind of scrolling through and looking at some of the face-off percentages here, power play percentage, shorthanded, time on ice, etc. The Bruins were absolutely abysmal. My Lord, in the face-off dot. Anywho, Wen looks like he's chiming in from Scotland. With the weather in Scotland now, glad work was canceled so I could watch the game.
Nice.
Now,
we appreciate you joining us from Scotland. I would like to get there and golf sometime.
It's probably a good place to golf.
Some of my ancestors are from Scotland. Some of my wife's family is definitely from Scotland. So I'd like to get back at some point and check it out and do a little golfing.
And it's definitely drinking time where he is. It's 21:36 for all you military time folks. And he's drinking rum cask Yura single malt whiskey.
Attaboy. Good for you. Sounds amazing.
Not too shabby.
36. What is that? Like
936, I believe.
936?
836, 936. You just subtract 12 from it, typically.
Yeah.
So 936? I don't know. Don't math me on this one.
Yeah, that's 936. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Anywho, not math guy, usually math guy. Lowry and McAvoy today. They looked better. I would pleasantly disagree. I think Lowry for the first 30 minutes of that game was absolutely atrocious. And I believe that I texted Maddie and Smitty halfway through the game or before the game that, we really shouldn't be screaming about prospect management and bringing up these prospects and letting them work out the kinks and make some mistakes. But I sit here and don't want Lowry to be playing on this roster. That's kind of hypocritical. But at the same token, when Lowry one-hands a puck into the corner and then stops skating after the puck and lets the other team take it away and then half-asses a breakout pass and gives it right back to the Panthers, that is inexcusable.
Yeah, look, I would say for the poke into the corner thing, I think he's probably overthinking it. I think this Bruins system is to give up the outside and keep pucks away from the middle. So he probably poked it, didn't think he could get there. So he just stayed tight to the net, probably trying to play the system. Something like that with a little more experience. Maybe he realizes, look, I can win this puck, or I could tie this guy up and we might be able to get it, get some support and get it out. That hopefully will come from experience. I thought he was pretty good overall today. I mean, he had a couple assists. He was a +1, which is, already on the good side for him. And he only had 2 giveaways against a Panthers team that forces giveaways. He played almost 21 minutes. So, overall, I would say a step in the right direction. Is he going to be anyone, confuse him for Zdeno Chara? No, never. But a step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned.
Now, to kill the curiosity, apparently a female is called a doe, a flyer, or a Jill.
A Jill, that's what
And
it
a
was.
Jill is the most Australian name that they could give a kangaroo.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
But
All right.
also,
Appreciate it,
the
Dan.
males are called Jacks. So you have Jack and Jill.
Oh,
How
little
fitting.
ditty. Yeah,
You know,
it is.
Hey, don't say, come on, no Diddy.
A little ditty about Jack and Diane. That's
You can't say Diddy out loud these days.
no, but
man.
like ditty, like a song from John Mellencamp. Jack
I'm
and
just
Diane.
busting your balls.
Yeah.
Dan Maynard, also in all that time down under, in between his fighting of the Kangaroos, went back and watched some of the old Pasta goal highlights the other night. Reminds me of how good he can be with a good center. This guy is a weapon when he gets the place that he needs.
It's all 100% true. I mean, he's one of the elite goal scorers in the league. There aren't many of them, and he's one of them. When he has somebody that can deliver him the puck. And you know, it's a perfect example. You know, today doesn't really show up for most of the first period. You don't really hear his name very often. Same in the second. Don't really hear his name. You know, floating around, whatever. Then a great pass by Geeky to Pastrnak, and it's in the net. Like that's what goal scorers can do. They disappear. You don't hear the name, and then all of a sudden it's on their stick and it's in the net. And you know, when he's going well, that's what he can do. You know, the power play has been a letdown because that's where he's done a lot of damage over his career. So they got to figure that thing out. And getting Chris Kelly off of coaching that thing, I probably think is one of the ways they could do that, to put somebody there with some actual experience.
Speaking of, son of a bitch, I called it. I was fucking off, and I totally forgot about this, but I called it, son of a bitch. Joe Sacco in overtime called the timeout and drew it up on the fucking clipboard. And I texted you guys being an asshole, and I said, oh my God, Joe Sacco is drawing up the play. We're totally going to score now. And then lo and behold, we did.
Yeah.
I got so distracted by the fact that we scored the goal and won the game that I forgot about that. So maybe that's it. Maybe Chris Kelly is the problem, and Sacco just needs to do it all.
I said that, I think either in one of the last post games or in the last episode, that it's time for Kelly to be done with it. And if it has to go back to Sacco, who was running the thing before, then have it go back to Sacco. I don't care. Give him more to do. Doesn't bother me in the least, but we need somebody there that can actually make the thing work like an NHL power play, and not like a Pee Wee power play with, you know, a bunch of guys out there that don't know what they're doing. The entries were, you know, bad again for the most part. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. You watch Florida do it, and it seems pretty easy. They don't have guys stationed up at the wing boards. They have everybody coming in with motion, so that if they put the puck in deep, they have guys to retrieve it. And the Bruins just don't do that. They have like one guy maybe, so that if the defenseman for the other team gets there first, it's a D to D pass and then it's out. Like they give up possession and they give up pucks way too easily, or they try to stick handle through guys like Pastrnak did the other night against Tampa for a turnover and then a goal. Like they need to figure some things out with that thing in order to really unlock some more scoring. They just do.
Yeah, and a few quick comments here. Hasmick chimes in. When we win, it's by one goal. When we lose, we're blown out. Thanks for the comment, Hasmick. Sean Michael. This win is great, but it doesn't change anything. Still want big trades and Sweeney gone. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. Just kind of squeak this one out and got some puck luck at the end of the game. Jason Larod, Lowry was scrappy and cocky when he was in the USHL. Hopefully he can add some of that at the NHL level at some point. And then here's a fun one. Bruce Bridger. Why, oh, why have Zacha taking the last straw after already losing 2 to Barkov? Why not Lindstrom, who Ferraro later referred to as the Bruins' best faceoff guy? Lindholm, not Lindstrom.
Yeah.
And I think that was a icing at that point, if I'm not mistaken. There was a few of them back to back.
I think it was. There were icings back to back. I think, I don't know what the rule is, but I feel like after the Panthers call a timeout, I feel like you should be able to change on an icing, but you probably still can't. So, I mean, that's probably why he was still taking the
You
draw.
can't, and that's why you can call the timeout on an icing during a regular game to get yourself the extra time, and then that same group comes back out.
No, well, yeah, that was Florida though that called it. You're not the defensive team isn't allowed to call a timeout on an icing anymore. They can't.
Well, they can't. When did they change that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, but I think I'm pretty sure that that's the rule. You're not allowed to do that anymore as the team that ices the puck.
Let me take a look.
I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that is true now.
Talk amongst yourselves.
All right. I don't know where we are in the fan comments though.
Dan Maynard's next with "I'm not getting it in my head." Here, ready?
Oh yeah, there it is. I'm not getting in my head that this is what brings us back. Bruins are that abusive partner. Oh, we already had that one. You already read that one. All right. Shaz Diet says, per Ty Anderson, first time they've surrendered 100+ shots in a regular season game since they started tracking in 2007. Yeah, not good. Not what you're looking for, but hey, still found a way to win. So we'll take that one, I guess. But like we've said, it's not a recipe for success. It's not something they should depend on. You're not going to, especially a team as talented as Florida, you're not going to keep doing that, giving up 43 shots on goal and block, 29 shots against a team this good and come out on top. It's not something you can do. It's not sustainable at all.
Upon further review, and this isn't a ton of digging, but it says, yes, in ice hockey, a defensive team can call a timeout after an icing violation, meaning they can use their timeout even if they are the team not committing the icing infraction. However, the team that iced the puck, then that's backwards. It says the team that iced the puck is not allowed to make player substitutions during that timeout. Oh no, then that's still fine. They can call the timeout, but still no substitutions.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes. So anybody can call the timeout, but the defensive team still cannot change those players. Those players still have to stay.
Okay.
So on the money there.
Yep.
Anywho, where were we here? We're getting back to the end of the comments here. Savoie Cross chimes in. He's shouting out at Pejman here. He said he's doing things away from the puck. The contract is cool. Team needs to settle on one style instead of players playing different style each time they line change.
Yeah, he's Savoie's talking about Elias Lindholm because Pajman mentions, does anybody notice him? I swear Sacco could scratch him without me knowing, and I would not notice a difference. I rarely hear his name or see him make any plays. I hate that contract. Look, I hate the contract too. He does make plays away from the puck. I think he's more physical than people give him credit for. He does forecheck fairly well, so he can cause some turnovers. But offensively, he's just not very gifted. He's not a great goal scorer. He doesn't have great offensive instincts, I don't think. So, I don't think you're going to see much from him offensively. He needs to play with really, really good players to produce offensively, and that was a few years back. I think maybe he's more of Jesus, I can't believe I'm saying it, but more of a playoff type performer. He had a pretty good playoff for Vancouver last year, as did Zadorov. So I think those additions were maybe in the eyes of management for the Bruins to make the playoffs. They'd be better served once they got there. We'll see if they can get there. And if they can, and those guys come up big, well, then, maybe we have to owe Don Sweeney an apology. I still think the contracts are both lousy. But if they produce come playoff time and the team can win, a couple of rounds, then maybe you have to give the guy credit. So we'll see how that all shakes out in the long run. I don't see it going particularly well. I still think the roster's lacking in scoring. I think Zadorov probably was redundant. You already had a couple of left shot Ds who were decent. You needed to get nastier there. I get that, but contract was too long and for too much money, I think. So we'll see how that all shakes out in the end. but right now it doesn't look great.
Yeah, and as a wise man once said, it's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Let's see if it pays off.
Yes, and we'll probably round it out on this topic here, spinning off the back of this comment from Rob Spector. Why wasn't Geeky on the power play in OT? Now, the Geeks had a good game by all accounts here, and he's been getting a lot of shit from you guys on the show throughout the season, and he's starting to play better. He's playing in the top 6, so obviously playing with good players, you should be playing a little bit better. Is he starting to change your opinion on if you want him to stay or if you want him to go?
A little bit. He's an RFA, right?
I believe you're correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have control over him. So what's he making now? Like 2 and change or something like that, I think.
I believe it's 2 on the dot.
2 on the dot. So, I mean, if you can get a guy who's has a little bit of, it seems like anyway, he has a little bit of chemistry with Pastrnak. I mean, they've combined now for some goals. So, you know, if that's a guy that you can hang around for 3-ish, I don't hate that. He's got 10 goals on the year now. I think he's the 4th guy on the team with 10 goals, which is awful to say at this point in the season, but true nonetheless. 5th guy. So Pastrnak has 19 now, Marchand 15, Brazo with 10, Coyle with 10, and now Geeky with 10. Zacha has 9.
Brazo's 5 away from the T-Boz t-shirt.
He is. So, you know, yeah, I don't hate it. If you keep him around for $3 million-ish in that ballpark, that'd be fine with me. Because I think he does have a good shot, and he does seem to have a little something developing with Pastrnak. So I don't hate it.
Yeah, I guess I don't really hate it at all, but it is just one game. It is 1 in 6 in the last 7, so won't try to sit here and live out with some rose-colored glasses. We still got a few more games to go, and just shy of 2 months until the trade deadline, actually. So things should get spicy. We're about a month away from the Four Nations face-off, which will give us another roster freeze for a couple weeks. So NHL general managers are going to want to try and get some business done before that. So if you look at it that way, there's maybe only 4 to 5 weeks left that general managers can do business before the trade deadline.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Bruins do. Like I've said, I don't see them making any earth-shattering, core-altering trade. I just don't think that's in Sweeney's DNA. I don't think that's how he operates. You may see them move a guy like Frederick, you know, but I think he'd be looking for something similar back in return. You know, maybe kind of a change of scenery type thing for both players. And he'll probably take on more money because he's an asshole. Sweeney, I'm talking about. Sorry, John. But, you know, I just don't see them doing anything big. I think they maybe would try to find a depth defenseman, and they'll look for some scoring, I would imagine. I'm just not sure, you know, what they can get, what will be out there that they can afford to do, really, with the amount of cap space they have.
Yeah, the amount of cap space is going to be the question. It's going to be a whole lot of questions leading up to the trade deadline. But for us, that'll do it for this Saturday. And as Maddie said, a win is a win is a win. And as always, go Bruins.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.